Hello, everyone. So my name is Donatas, and first of all, thanks, Sarainen, for setting up an event like this. I think it's very important to discuss these topics, which become very important for any businesses and families, especially in the current stage. So in my presentation, I'll briefly talk about our family experience on the generational shift that we had and are currently still having, and briefly discuss the governance mechanisms and processes that are needed to make this process successful. So first of all, who are we? Our core business is agricultural machinery distribution, and we operate in 4 countries, in Lithuania, Latvia, Belarus, and Kaliningrad district of Russian Federation. We have 370 employees working in 22 shops in these 4 countries. Just to give you a sense of the scope of our activities and what we are doing. As I said, 4 countries. The company was established in 1992 by my father, so I'm second generation. I joined the business in 2010 when we were expanding the business to Latvia, and I became a CEO of the company in 2014. Apart from the agricultural machinery and being a John Deere dealer in 4 countries, we are actively engaged in forestry equipment business. We also focus a lot of precision agriculture. We have a rental company for agricultural machines, some e-commerce activities, and also currently we're looking how to integrate our present precision agricultural solutions to meet the demands of sustainable agriculture. So a bit about my story. I put 3 distinct buckets to show how to develop my experience and how this was relevant to the generational change and also to drafting certain governance practices. So first and main bucket of my experience is the family business. As I mentioned, I started in 2010. And my primary responsibility was developing the business in Latvia. I also had some additional responsibilities at the group level in internal controls. I became CEO in 2014, and I'm running the company since then. Before joining the business, I had experience in other companies. So first of all, for some time I worked for John Deere Financial in UK. And just before joining the business, I was working for Ernst & Young consulting department, when actually my dad invited me to join and look after the expansion of our family business in Latvia. I also had some experiences in family investments sitting at the board level, and also some experience in venture capital investments, like Fandacity and cardboard production, both in Lithuania and abroad. And why I'm mentioning this, I think it gave me well-rounded experience of how the businesses work, being both at the big corporates, being at the board level, and being an investor and shareholder, which brings very, very valuable insights to managing the family business itself. Another bucket, the third bucket of the experience, is the education. So I started at Vilnius University, where I did my undergrad degree. Then I went to London School of Economics, where I did my master's. And before becoming the CEO of our family business, I did my MBA at INSEAD. And I think that was, in this context that we're speaking today, that was the most profound experience for me, because I met other family businesses, people from other family businesses who are, or which the businesses are 150, 200 years old. And basically only then I understood what kind of responsibility you have to manage this process thoroughly and to plan ahead. When I came back, I started applying many of these things. There was no experience in the market by then. No one was talking about this. There were no webinars like that. And it was quite tough, I would say, because you didn't have anyone to consult with, as opposed to what we have now. So first of all, I guess I would like to distinguish the management transition and the ownership transition. So first of all, the management transition. It's very important to understand that this mainly deals with the business, and it's more than less about the people and the results of the company. I guess important aspects to take into account here is the definition of the roles and responsibilities of the first and the second generation. So in my case, it was quite easy and understandable. In my case, I started from Latvia and got overall responsibility for the whole business afterwards. Then it's decision making. I think it's very important to understand that next generation comes into business inherently having less experience or knowing less about the business itself. But on the other hand, it's very important to clarify who makes which decisions, because you need this clarity for the family and for the management in the company. The other aspect, I guess, is the type of decisions, and I think it's group 3, is the investment strategy and operations. So I think the wise thing is to start with operations, where decisions are more short-term and can be fixed. Then you can go to strategy and maybe then only to investment decisions. Another key aspect in the management transition is the timing. I think it is critical, and it needs to be done not too early and not too late. In our case, circumstances were great. As I mentioned, it was development of Latvia, which allowed me to develop the business there, but also apply best practices from other countries and learn at the same time. And the last aspect is experience and acceptance. I guess it's possible, and I guess it's a good practice to share experience with the next generation, and there the older generation can really help. But I think the acceptance can only be achieved by the new generation. And by acceptance, I mean the acceptance by customers, partners, and the employees. Another part is the ownership transition. And for me, the biggest difference that this deals with both business and the family. And one of the key areas here is the management of capital. Whatever the goal might be in the family, whether it's to accumulate the capital, whether it is to distribute it, but it still needs to be managed. The second aspect is to manage the values, because I mean, if the business is solid, if the family got there, so there must be some good values in the family which needs to be transitioned to the other generations. So with ownership becomes important to attach the value aspect to it, and to speak about this and to transition them hand in hand. And I guess colleagues before me spoken about the documents. So I agree, the family constitution is the key document in that, and it serves as a backbone for all the governance processes, and it deals with, like in our case, with the board composition, with the distribution of the family assets, with the hiring of the family members, but also with the value system of the family. Then other documents were prepared in our case from the family constitution, like shareholder agreement, prenup agreements, and we also set up formal governance process in the form of family meetings, which we do each year. Very important aspect that I would like to mention and which served us well, I think, is the communication in the family between the older generation and the younger one, and acceptance and listening to each other. And I was very happy that I had a dad which was willing to accept the flexibility, and he was forward thinking. And we were one of the first families in the Baltics to implement structured generational transition. So some best practices to take into account when thinking, and this mostly deals with ownership transition in our case. So it's very important to set up the psychological comfort, because I know a lot of families which just couldn't start talking about the subject because about the subject of succession at all, because it effectively deals with the scenarios when one of the generations is not present. So I think setting up this psychological comfort and start speaking about this is the first thing. The second thing is very important to clean the air in the family. If there are any tensions and resolve conflicts in the family, before starting drafting these documents and agreeing about the governance of the family and the family documents, I think it needs to be resolved. That's very important, because otherwise you cannot have an open discussion about these things, or there are some conflicts of interest and so on. As I mentioned before, values is very important, and I think that's the building foundation for both business and the family. What we did in our family, we did an anonymous survey where each family member marked from a list the values that he, let's say, appreciates or he personally has, and then we saw the overlaps of what kind of values we have the most in the family. And I would say 80% were the same, and this allowed us to distill the values that are important in our family, and they make them formal and include them in the family constitution and other documents. The other important decision to make is the business first or family first. And it's very important because it reflects some other decisions which you need to take along the road while drafting the family constitution, or even implementing some governance decisions in the business. I think one other important aspect, and ideally I would suggest this program is present, because then the discussion is theoretical and not personal. There are no people or situations attached to it, and the discussion is unbiased. So in our case, we're very lucky that we were able to make this before the spouses and third gen is present, and I would highly suggest for anyone to do it exactly at this point. The second topic is the family definition. It's the question who participates in the ownership transition. It seems easy, but just think about this. Do spouses of the next generations should participate in inheritance mechanisms of the family assets? Do adopted children need to participate in it as well? What if the spouse has a kid and he is adopted? Does he participate in this mechanism or not? So it's much more complicated than it seems, and it requires a thorough discussion in the family. The other aspect is hiring family members. So in our case, we have outlined who makes the decision on hiring the family members. We actually even set up a special committee for this. And we outlined the basic criteria to be able to apply to the positions in the family business, including education, relevant experience, and knowledge of languages. Here we took best practices from the old family businesses in other countries, and we didn't invent anything. So it just we more or less applied the principle, adding some details relevant to our countries and our context. Another important aspect, I guess, is who leads the process of drafting these documents and setting up the family governance. And I would like to outline the importance of external moderator in the process, which we had in our case. And the external moderator helps to ease the conversation, I think, especially on the sensitive subjects. If you have some uncomfortable questions on the table, it's not left on the table. They usually pick it up and quite gently force the family to solve it. And it helps to move the process along. And the last thing I would say, which we didn't take into account, is how time-consuming the process is. It took us almost 2.5 years to draft the family constitution. It takes a lot of time to set up the meetings of the family because everyone is busy, especially if everyone has different jobs. So even setting up the meetings is challenging. Then the questions are really sensitive. You need time to discuss them. You need time to rethink. So it's complex and it's very, very time consuming. So I heard this very good quote in one of the family business conferences, and I truly believe that it's true. And I think that's the logic that family businesses need to apply when planning their long-term perspective. So a quarter in the family business is just 25 years. So I think all best practices are there, but it is still more art than a science. And every family and every situation is very different, especially in the Baltics. Maybe some families moved faster than others because of the types of businesses, because of the age and so on. But we need to understand that we are all new in this. Our oldest family businesses are just 30 years old. So I'd like to invite and encourage everyone to share the experience on this very interesting and complicated topic. Thank you.